Guys, it's Sasha the Diva, and
I'm Dr. Dawn Robinson McDonald. You can call me Dr. Dawn.
okay, we're done with that. All right. Hey, Dr. Dawn.
Nice to meet you.
It's
I'm glad to be here.
Meet you too. Okay, guys. Yesterday, when I read the story about Paris Jackson and this very young girl attempting suicide, my heart just dropped in the studio. Instantly, I said, I've got to get a professional in here. We've got to talk about these teenagers. We have to talk about depression. And Dr. Dawn, one of the things that I said yesterday was that I was in a very dark place when my dad passed away. And I never experienced depression. And I did not know that I couldn't get myself out of that hole. And I had to get someone like you to help me. And yes, y'all, I had to get on medication, okay? But look at me now. I'm like so much better. But I want to talk about not particularly, Paris. I know she's going to go through counseling. I want to talk about depression. What is depression?
Depression is just this overlying, really deep sense of grief, dealing with a lot of different, a sense of hopelessness. And so it's just like an overwhelming sense of hopelessness that someone may experience. And you may hear people talk sometimes about feeling like they have something like a dark cloud that's following them wherever they go.
Yes.
And that's what it's like. It's not where you can just snap out of it. Sometimes we may be sad, we may be going through things, and those things we can get over. But when you're talking about depression, you're just talking about something that just kind of stays with and follows that person everywhere that they go.
So what are some of the signs? Because some of the things that I had was tired all the time. I felt fatigue. Give me all the signs of depression.
Definitely one of them. Fatigue, lack of energy, lack of enthusiasm, definitely a sense of hopelessness. And this is one of the things that we find a lot of times with teens. Sometimes that may vary with teens from adults, because a lot of times with adults, you may find more of the hopelessness. But a lot of the teens that I work with, I see that whole sense of hopelessness, though. But sometimes they may not appear to be so sad. They may seem like they have it all together.
But now with teenagers, because you know how our teenagers are, they on the internet all the time. They on their cell phones, so they separate themselves from us. So how do we know that our kid is in a place like that, and we're just like, oh, they just hanging with their friends? How do we know that?
It's difficult sometimes because you have so many different things that are common to adolescents, like irritability. Well, we know a lot of times the typical teenager may be a little bit irritable, but it's a little bit different. So this maybe they've been irritable before, but now you're noticing some changes. You also may notice things like maybe their eating habits have changed. Maybe they're eating a little bit more or less. Sleeping habits may change. They're sleeping a little bit more or less. Having thoughts about suicide. Maybe they're saying things like, you know what, I just kind of don't see the purpose of living anymore. I just kind of wish that this was all over.
Isn't it so crazy that these are young adults? They have their whole life. And I do understand the peer pressures, but they actually think of killing themselves. They're 15 years old. It just like amazes me. It's Dr. Dawn. If you're needing her services, you can call her at 404-236-6931, right?
Yes.
Now, one of the things I really want to tap into, when you cut your wrist, is that telling me I'm trying to get some help? Do you really want to end it? I always say that if someone picks up a gun, they really want to be out of here. If they go up to the 24th floor and they take a dive, they really want to be out of here. But then when I hear someone taking pills, it's like, are they searching for help? So is that what has happened?
I would take that as a sign that this person needs to get help. So someone who's cutting, whether or not, I think this is a time where you want to seek professional help and get a trained therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor, to be able to actually work with that child and find out what's going on. I would take it very seriously. I know sometimes people will say, well, they do this all the time, or they're talking about hurting themselves all the time. But I think we should take all these situations seriously. I remember going through a situation when I was about 18 years old, having a best friend who constantly kept saying, that they wanted to do things to hurt or harm themselves. And I'd gone to counseling at the time because it was a lot to take on. And having a counselor or a psychologist at the time say, oh, well, they're probably just trying to get attention. You have to focus on yourself. And for the longest time, they kept saying it, and then eventually they did actually take their life. And so it's a lot of times you may think like this person is just doing this to get attention, but we should just take every single situation serious. And I know, especially in the African American community, that a lot of times,
we
you
keep it all inside.
Yes,
especially men.
Yes,
they keep it inside. And I want to be clear on the type of doctor we should be dealing with or counselor. Okay, what is the difference with the counselor, psychologist? What is it? Because I don't look. I don't know. I just keep it real. You know, I'm just saying. Okay.
So counselors are more so trained to deal with.
Notes, right? Okay.
Counselors deal with more so counseling, like working with the client to deal with whatever the struggles they're dealing. They may have different ways that they may help them. I focus on dealing with any irrational beliefs that people may have.
Okay.
I also focus on the person and the context of their environment. You have psychologists. A lot of times they're trained more so to do the assessments.
Okay.
And then your psychiatrist is when you actually may need medication. That's where you would go to a psychiatrist. So as a counselor, I can't prescribe medication. Your psychiatrist or a medical doctor would be the one to prescribe medication.
For the medication, at what point does someone need medication? How do they determine that?
I think if you're in a situation where it wouldn't really respond to just the counseling by itself, then that's where that person may actually need medication just to kind of help them get through that. The thing, though, that I would caution with is being really careful, making sure that if you're on medication that you're also seeking therapy too, because that medication doesn't make the problems that you're dealing with go away. You've got to still be able to work through a lot of that stuff. So you need both in combination with one another. And then also for teens with some antidepressants that you may notice that there's an increase in like suicidal thoughts. Yes, so I think it's essential for not just having the medications, but if you're seeking medication, also to be able to get the counseling services.
So it's hands on hands. And let me tell you something about my doctor. He only gave me a few pills to make sure you don't get addicted to anything. So anything else that we need to know? Any tips that we can take with this?
Definitely. I think the main thing is to be able to. Our kids are looking for our attention. They want to know. They're dealing with a lot of different things. You've got social media. They're dealing with bullying situations at school. They need to know that we care about them. They need to know that we support them. We need to be spending time with them. If you're a parent, I would say making sure you have an hour a week or so of special time that you spend with your child. If you have more than one child, it becomes more of a challenge, especially for single parents. How do you carve out time for this child, 1 hour for that child, but making that time because they need that. If you have a child that's struggling with depression or suicide, make sure that you listen to them, you validate their feelings, and you get the help that they need.
Wow. High five. Okay, say your whole name again. Dr.
Dawn Robinson McDonald. Just say Dr. Dawn.
Okay. You can call her at 404-236-6931, and we're going to keep the prayers for Paris Jackson and for any child that is out there suffering with depression. Moms and dads, if you need me, just reach out to Sasha the Diva. We got you. Right, Dr. Dawn?
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Oh, can I take a picture?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my first actual